Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're really focusing on a key shift in global relations, the strengthening strategic partnership between the U.S. and India,
Yeah.
especially looking at energy and defense.
Absolutely. It's something U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has emphasized recently, and India has certainly responded positively. It feels like there's real momentum.
Right, and it comes at such a critical time, doesn't it, with all the shifts in global power, tech innovation, and the massive pressure for climate action.
Exactly. Look, U.S.-India cooperation isn't brand new, but the current situation, the sheer scale of the challenges, it demands something. Well, deeper, more strategic.
That's what we want to unpack today. Our mission, if you like, is to pull out the most important insights on this India-U.S. collaboration. We'll focus on energy security, critical minerals, and nuclear power.
And explain why it matters so much, particularly for India's development path and its climate targets.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And for you listening, especially if you're preparing for the UPSC exams, think of this as vital stuff for mains current affairs, maybe even some pointers for prelims too.
Definitely relevant.
Okay, let's dive in, starting with India's energy security picture. What are the core goals there?
Well, fundamentally, India is aiming for three main things. First, getting the energy resources it needs reliably and at predictable prices. Second, making sure its supply chains are secure, resilient. And third, sustainability, making it all environmentally sound. These aren't separate goals. They're completely intertwined. Crucial for development, crucial for climate action.
Right. And that seems to be the perfect entry point for this enhanced U.S. collaboration we're talking about, especially on nuclear energy and those critical minerals.
It really is. You've got India with this huge growing energy demand and a pretty dynamic policy environment now, pushing for innovation.
And the U.S. brings the capital, the technology.
Exactly. The financial clout and the advanced tech, it looks like, potentially very powerful combination, a good fit.
Let's dig into critical minerals first. These things, lithium, cobalt, rare earths, they seem to be everywhere in the news.
They are, and for good reason. They're absolutely foundational for the clean energy transition. You can't have EVs, large-scale batteries, advanced wind turbines, or even sophisticated defense systems without them.
So the whole green energy push depends on securing these materials.
Inextricably linked. Access and, crucially, the processing of these minerals are vital.
And that processing part is where the challenge lies currently, isn't it?
That's putting it mildly. Right now, China has a near monopoly on processing rare earth elements. We're talking close to 90% of global capacity.
90%, wow.
Yeah. It creates huge fragility in global supply chains, strategic vulnerabilities. Countries become dependent, open to supply shocks, or, frankly, geopolitical pressure.
Which leads us nicely to that 2024 Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, between India and the U.S. What's the significance there?
It's a really important signal. It's a formal acknowledgement that both countries see diversifying these critical mineral supply chains as a shared, urgent priority, building more robust, secure access.
But it's just a first step, right? An OU doesn't automatically solve the problem.
Absolutely not. Signing it is one thing. The real test is turning that commitment into concrete actions, sustained effort. That's the key.
So if this partnership is going to be effective, what principles should guide it? What needs to happen?
Okay, I think there are a few key things. First, we need a really holistic perspective. Don't just think mining, think enablers. These minerals enable tech across strategic sectors, energy, defense, communications.
So broader than just digging stuff out of the ground.
Much broader. Seeing it this way encourages deeper collaboration across different industries, spurs innovation between Indian and American companies.
Okay, that makes sense. What's next?
Second, we need synergy. Both bilaterally, just India and the U.S., but also plurilaterally. We need solid supply guarantees, collaborative frameworks.
Like that proposed consortium.
Yes, the idea of an India-U.S. critical minerals consortium for joint exploration, maybe joint processing ventures that could be really powerful. And we should leverage groups like the Quad.
Involving Japan and Australia, too.
Exactly. Bring in their capabilities, their resource access, combined strengths. It makes the whole effort more resilient.
And this sounds like it requires patience. It's not an overnight fix.
Definitely not. That's the third principle. Long-term commitment, building mines, setting up processing plants. This takes decades. It's not like installing solar panels.
So a roadmap is needed.
A clear, probably 20-year roadmap with real milestones along the way to track progress. And ideas like the proposed India-U.S. mineral exchange. That's interesting.
Using blockchain, you mentioned.
Yeah, a blockchain-enabled platform. Imagine the transparency tracking minerals from mine to final product. It could set a global standard for ethical, traceable, resilient supply chains.
A blockchain for minerals. That could really boost trust.
It could. And beyond that, think about joint strategic stockpiles, building reserves together, and maybe co-investing in projects in third countries, say in Africa or Latin America, to spread the risk and access more resources.
Okay, so building resilience through diverse sources, better tracking, and long-term planning for critical minerals. Got it. Let's switch gears now to nuclear energy. India has some huge ambitions here.
Huge is right. India's electricity demand is just soaring, and they have that net zero target. So nuclear power is seen as, well, essential. It provides reliable baseload power.
The kind that runs 247, unlike solar or wind sometimes.
Exactly. It complements renewables perfectly, providing that stable foundation.
And the target figure is quite something.
It is. India's aiming for 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047.
100 GW. What's the current capacity?
It's just over 8 GW right now.
Okay, so that's a massive leap, more than a tenfold increase in about 2 decades.
Precisely. It means they need a dramatic acceleration in how quickly they build new nuclear plants. A huge scale-up is required.
What needs to change to make that happen? What are the key reforms needed for this U.S.-India collaboration to really work in nuclear?
Well, several things stand out. First, streamlining deployment, getting those construction times down. Right now, it takes about 9 years on average to build a nuclear plant in India.
9 years.
Yeah. The goal should be to cut that down to maybe 6 years. That means standardized designs, faster approvals, really skilled project management. Shorter build times mean lower costs, more investor confidence. Speed matters.
Makes sense. And what about funding this massive expansion? Can the private sector get involved?
It absolutely has to. Unlocking private capital is critical. And this is where small modular reactors, SMRs, become really interesting.
They're smaller, maybe quicker to build.
Smaller, potentially lower upfront cost, more flexible in where you can site them compared to the giant traditional reactors. But investors need certainty.
What kind of certainty?
Clear offtake mechanisms, basically, knowing someone will buy the power generated, risk mitigation tools, long-term power purchase agreements. You need to make SMR projects bankable.
Because the overall investment is enormous, right?
Potentially around $180 billion to hit that 100 GW target. You simply can't do that with public funds alone. You need the private sector.
Wow, $180 billion. And the legal framework must be crucial, too.
Hugely important. Legislative and regulatory reform is key. Specifically, amending India's Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act from 2010, that's seen as a barrier to private and international players.
Has there been any movement on that front?
Well, a positive sign was the recent approval for Holtec International, a U.S. company, to transfer SMR technology to Indian firms. That shows potential for tech sharing.
But the liability issue needs addressing for broader participation.
Yes, that's widely seen as necessary. And of course, underpinning all of this has to be safety and long-term responsibility.
Waste management, decommissioning.
Absolutely paramount. As India looks to maybe even lead in SMR manufacturing, having world-class, robust protocols for waste and decommissioning right from the start is non-negotiable. Public trust depends on it.
Okay, so let's pull back again. We've talked minerals, we've talked nuclear. What does this strengthened partnership mean in the bigger global picture?
Well, look at the context. The IMF's recent World Economic Outlook, the April 2025 one, it points to a pretty uncertain world. Trade tensions, economic fragmentation.
Yeah.
It's getting choppy out there.
Right, more instability.
In that kind of environment, a strong, resilient, long-term India-U.S. energy partnership offers, significant mutual strategic assurance. It's a source of stability for both.
And their strengths complement each other.
Fundamentally, you have India's incredible growth trajectory, its rising demand, its scale, and you have the U.S.'s dynamic tech ecosystem, its capital markets. It's a powerful match.
So it's more than just trading goods or tech.
Much more. Together, they can shape a more stable, sustainable global energy future. But, and this is a big but, it can't just be about signing agreements and making statements.
It needs to go deeper.
Yes, it needs to focus on what some called the plumbing of cooperation, the practical stuff.
Right.
Things like effective systems to track investments, robust programs for training the workforce needed for these new industries, secure ways to share data, innovation platforms like the ICE initiative, the U.S.-India initiative on critical and emerging technology.
So building the actual mechanisms that make collaboration work day to day.
Exactly that. These institutional frameworks, these nuts and bolts, they're what turn high-level intentions into real, tangible results that last.
And India hosting the next Quad Summit? taking a bigger role in global energy discussions, that seems like a good moment to push this forward.
It's a perfect opportunity, a
Yeah.
chance to embed this bilateral cooperation into more durable international structures and cross-border frameworks. Make it stick.
Okay, so if we were to boil it all down, what's the main takeaway for our listeners today?
I'd say the foundation is there. The groundwork for a really strong India-U.S. partnership in energy and critical minerals exists. The potential is huge.
But the need now is...
The need now is to operationalize that vision,
Yeah.
to move from agreement to action. That requires long-term strategic clarity, yes, but also very pragmatic, concrete steps now.
And for you listening, especially our UPSC aspirants, you can see how directly this plugs into your syllabus, mains, current affairs, certainly maybe prelims implications too. It forces us to think, doesn't it? Given how interconnected energy security, economic growth, and geopolitics are, what specific long-term strategies do you think are most critical for India and the U.S. to prioritize in this really complex, shifting global landscape? Definitely something to chew on.
It really is. Building that resilient, sustainable future takes foresight, it takes investment, and fundamentally it takes trust. This partnership, if done right, holds the potential for all three.
Well said. If you found this deep dive useful, please do like and subscribe, and we'd love to hear your thoughts or any further questions in the comments below.
Yes, please do.
Just a reminder, the analysis and information we discussed today draw heavily from reporting and perspectives published in the Hindu.
A key source for understanding these developments.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.